So I am welcome to the regular board meeting of the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District. I'm going to call it to order. It is now 6 p.m. on June 2nd, 2021. Shauna, could we get a roll call, please?
Thank you. Director Aguirre?
Here.
Director Bender?
Here.
Director Harris?
Here.
Vice President Laliotis?
Here.
President Finn?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to defer the pledge this evening. Brian, do we have any changes to the agenda tonight?
President Finn, there are no changes to this evening's agenda.
Very good. Thank you very much. Public comment. So this is time that is set aside for the public to comment on any matter that is not on the agenda. Testimony related to any agendized item will be addressed at the time that item is considered. I do want to start off by saying at our last meeting, the May 19th meeting, we did receive a public comment that I did not read at that time. I am planning on reading it this evening. I will read it during section 10 of our agendized item number 10 because it speaks directly to that. But I apologize for not reading it in the May 19th. I had a few questions. So is there any other public comment tonight that is not on something on the agenda?
No, Madam President. I have 5 more, but for item 10.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director update. This is time for the directors to comment on anything that is not on the agenda. Do we have any director comments this evening? Thank you, Director Harris. You're up.
Okay, I just wanted to thank the electric and water crews for getting the electricity back up and running and keeping our water pumping during the recent outages that we've had over the past few weeks. Also, the customer service department for answering all the calls that I'm sure that they've received, following up on and ensuring our contact information is up to date. The other thing is that this weekend is Truckee Day, and I encourage everybody to go online to keeptruckeegreen.com and sign up to volunteer to help keep Truckee green and pick up some trash around this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Harris. Do we have any other director comments this evening? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. I do not have a comment tonight. As we have a pretty dense meeting, I'm gonna keep it moving. General manager update. Brian, do you have an update for us this evening?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to follow up on a couple items. As Director Harris pointed out, we did have a couple of power outages, and I wanted to give just a brief overview for the board and the public. We experienced an outage on Thursday afternoon, Thursday, May 27th, and then again on Monday, May 31st. Each of those outages were, one of them we know for sure was caused by a critter getting into the substation. The other one is likely the same cause, but the first one on May 27th was Mars Valley sub. The second one was in the Tahoe Donner sub. And just wanted to kind of give a little update on just a quick overview on the process there and why some of those outages might take a little bit longer to restore. Typically, when we have a fault, there might be a brief interruption, a couple seconds, and then the system kind of normalizes and comes back into service. In the case of our summer outage, it's usually because we're in the one-shot configuration, and this is really to help prevent or avoid fires, wildland fires, or fires within our community. And so it requires a little bit more investigation by our crews. The line crews did a great job of mobilizing, getting out there, inspecting these substations and the circuits that those substations provide power to. So we appreciate the patience of the community. It's just the systems, for lack of a better term, is doing its job in terms of preventing potential fires during a fault condition. And it's something, we're going to experience in particular during our summer months with the fire season. And this summer, we're, experiencing some lower moisture content across, the Sierras. So it's something for us to be cognizant of, in addition to our tree vegetation management that we're continually doing, this one-shot sort of, single trip configuration is another way that we help protect the community. On that same note, next week, we have a press release going out, I believe today, or maybe it was just late yesterday. The district will be conducting 2 pretty significant tree management projects, one on Donner Pass Road by Donner Lake, by the state park on June 8th, I believe, and then Glenshire Drive on June 9th. These are road closures that will happen in the evening where we're making every effort we can to get out to the public with the message, social media, email blast, press release, because we know it can mean inconvenience for some. But again, this is all in the efforts of vegetation management and wildfire mitigation plans. So, public safety is important to us. And if you have any questions, the community has any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We can give you more details. Hopefully those road closures will be not too inconvenient for the community. Quick updates on water utility. We do have a couple projects in play. There is a water pipeline replacement project now underway in the Tahoe Donner subdivision. I believe we're starting on Snow Peak, but we'll be working throughout the summer. There'll be some minor inconveniences there in terms of intermittent water shutoffs as we transfer customers over to the new pipeline. And then obviously some traffic control as we have those excavations going on. Our engineering team, Neil Kaufman, and our water operations manager, Earl Smith, have been doing a good job of getting out there and spreading the message to those impacted. But again, this is part of our larger capital improvement plan and water replacement program. And then I wanted to give the board an update on, we've been having continuing discussions about the financial impacts of COVID-19 and the past due billing. And we did have a dip in kind of past due arrearages, we're referring to them, or as past due accounts in April, but that again has increased in May. And so it's a continuing concern with the district. The total numbers of past due accounts has exceeded the $450,000 mark. It's a continuing concern. Our particular concern is with the 90+ day outstanding balances. And so staff is working on a letter that will go out soon to those customers 90 days or greater in past due accounts, and explaining that the utility industry in general across the state of California is going back to normal operations, so to speak, in terms of collecting fees or late fees or sending out notices in terms of electric utility past due accounts. It all kind of depends on the water side with the Governor's Newsom's executive order, what that looks like after the June 15th kind of threshold that everyone's referring to. We, depending on how that executive order either kind of transitions or gets, repealed or modified, it will also have an impact on how we address past due water utility accounts. But we are going to begin addressing some of the 90+ day electric utility past dues. On that topic, we had a staff met with Senator Dolly last week on that topic and how the executive order and COVID-19 financial impacts for utilities, publicly owned utilities in particular, here in the Northern California region, really had an opportunity to speak on what the impacts have been specifically for the PUD and our sister agencies in terms of, we have funding available for payment relief, and those who need it are utilizing it. We still have available funding there for those to take advantage of, and all they need to do is reach out to us or use some of the payment plans. Our larger concerns are those customer accounts that aren't seeking payment relief but aren't paying their bills. And so we want to really address that kind of new class of past due accounts that aren't reaching out to us for assistance. So great meeting, great discussion with some of the sister agencies on how they're approaching it. And we're looking forward to utilizing and implementing some of those lessons learned. I think I'll wrap it up there as GM updates. We do have a heavy agenda this evening.
We do. Well, thank you very much, Brian. I think those are all important information that we should continue to share. Okay, moving on to our public hearing section of our agenda this evening. So item number 8 is a public hearing to consider adopting the water shortage contingency plan. I'm now going to open the public hearing, and I'm going to hand it over to staff for whatever presentation they have to offer us this evening and the public.
Good evening, President Finn and Board of Directors. I'm going to share my screen now. Oops, hang on. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes, I do.
Yes, this is a public hearing for adoption of the Water Shortage Contingency Plan. And some of this is going to be a recap of what we did back in the beginning of May. But as we discussed, the Urban Water Management Planning Act requires that all urban water suppliers prepare an urban water management plan and update it every 5 years. An urban water supplier is defined as a supplier publicly or privately owned, providing water for municipal purposes of more than 3,000 customers or supplying more than 3,000 acre feet of water annually. The district does qualify on both parameters. We have approximately 13,300 water system customers, and our potable water deliveries have averaged about 4,100 acre feet for the past 5 years. So we are required to adopt and submit an updated urban water management plan no later than July 1st of this year. The water shortage contingency plan is a required component of the urban water management plan, and per guidance from the state, a separate board action is necessary to adopt the water shortage contingency plan. Preparation of the water shortage contingency plan is exempt from the CEQA process, but a public hearing is required. So the schedule is kind of here for your review. We had an introductory workshop back in February. About a month ago in May, we had a review of the draft urban water management plan and water shortage contingency plans. And the board scheduled the public hearings for this evening. So this evening, we are scheduled to hold public hearings on both plans and for the board to consider adoption of both plans. We would then proceed to final the documents and submit everything to the Department of Water Resources later on this month. So Section 7 of the draft water shortage contingency plan has been revised to discuss the district's legal authorities. And in addition, there have been some minor revisions to Section 12, which discusses adoption of the plan. This revised document was attached to your board packet. And as of May 28th, we have not received any public comments regarding the draft water shortage contingency plan. There is no direct fiscal impact associated with this item. And so the recommendation before you is to conduct the public hearing to receive any public comment. And then there would be 2 board actions, first of which to adopt the water shortage contingency plan itself. And the second would be to adopt ordinance 2021-01, which codifies a number of items that are described in the water shortage contingency plan.
Okay, thank you very much, Neil. At this time, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Is there any public comment on our water shortage contingency plan?
No, Madam President.
Okay, very good. In which case, I'm now going to close the public hearing, and we will move on to the action item, which would be adopting Ordinance 2021, the Water Shortage Contingency Plan. I guess I need a motion.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Very good. Shauna, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Absolutely. Director Aguirre,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis,
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Great. I'm sure Neil didn't go far because our next item on the agenda is also a public hearing. Item number 9 is a public hearing to consider adopting the 2020 Urban Water Management Plan. And now I will officially open that hearing. And again, we look to Neil to give us some more information on this presentation.
We didn't vote on the ordinance, did we?
Oh, did we? Yeah, we did. Did I not just do that?
I only voted once for the first one. Did we have a second motion on that? I must have went to sleep or something.
Perhaps for clarification and just to make sure we get it right, we might want to hold 2 votes just to make certain that the record is clear.
I'll move the second 2021.
No, Krista, you mentioned you read both and the motion was what you read, and you read both sentences there.
Oh, okay. I bypassed that. Thank you.
So yeah, so now we're moving on to our second public hearing on the Urban Water Management Plan, and we will also have to take action on this.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
So yes, this item is a public hearing for the Urban Water Management Plan. So again, the district is required to prepare a plan and update it every 5 years. The district is considered an urban water supplier. Again, we're required to adopt and submit the updated plan by July 1st. We are exempt from CEQA. The public hearing is required, and the schedule here is the same that you just saw in the prior presentation. So there are no revisions so far to the draft urban water management plan that was presented back on May 5th. And as of May 28th, we have not received any public comments regarding the draft urban water management plan.
Okay.
So there is no direct fiscal impact associated with this item. And the recommendation before you is to conduct the public hearing to receive public comment on the draft urban water management plan, and then to consider adoption of the urban water management plan by ratifying resolution 2021-12.
Very good. Thank you, Neil. Have we had any public comment submitted about the Urban Water Management Plan?
No, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to add that I did have some informal conversations about it, and the comments were generally a little bit of concern about continuing to use best practices in monitoring our groundwater and surface water interface and collecting more data on that point. So put it out there. Okay, I am officially going to close this public hearing. And I'm happy to entertain a motion to adopt the 2020 Urban Management Plan by ratifying Resolution 2021-12, if anybody would like to move.
I move, so moved, what you just said.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And could we get a roll call vote on this one?
Thank you, Director Aguirre,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis,
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving right along, our third public hearing of the night. This is item number 10, is also a hearing. It is consideration of approving the general manager's employment agreement. And I will now officially open the public hearing. And I believe that Steve Gross is going to share information with us about this.
Thank you, President Finn. Good evening, directors and members of staff and the public. I'm presenting item number 10. Again, this is an item to conduct a public hearing with respect to ordinance number 2021-02, and then to consider adoption of ordinance 2021-02, which would approve an employment agreement with Brian Wright to serve as the district's general manager and to authorize the board president to execute that agreement. The agreement is attached to the ordinance. By way of background, earlier this year, the General Manager Ad Hoc Committee consisting of President Finn and Director Bender was established. The committee worked with Pam Hurt Associates. The committee had reviewed and suggested updates to both the hard skill sets and cultural skill sets that had been previously adopted by the board for its search of a general manager. Peckham and McKinney, the executive search firm, provided the professional executive recruiting services for the general manager position, including the initial screening and interviews. That work was done under the one and only and original contract between the district and Peckham and McKinney. They have a guarantee in their contract that provides that they will provide services if the general manager does not stay with the district for at least a year. And so it provided services under that agreement. The only additional costs and expenses to the district are hard out-of-pocket costs that the firm would have incurred. Peckham and McKinney presented a short list of 11 candidates to the board. The board then conducted a number of workshops to identify the 3 top candidates and interviewed them, and then determined to negotiate with and seek to employ Brian Wright as the district's general manager. California Public Utilities Code, section 16112, provides that the general manager of the district receives compensation as is provided for by the board by ordinance. And therefore, the employment agreement that establishes the general manager's compensation is approved by ordinance. So the district has complied with the legal timeline to schedule the public hearing. And tonight's public hearing is to consider this ordinance that would approve the general manager's employment agreement. I have one very small change that I would recommend with respect to ordinance number 2021-02. Which is at page 388 of the meeting packet. I know it's a rather long meeting packet if it takes a moment to scroll there. The second whereas clause states that the board wishes to employ Brian Wright as the general manager starting July 2nd. That should be July 3rd, 2021. The employment agreement attached to the ordinance does have the correct starting date as July 3rd of 2021. So I will turn it back over to President Finn to conduct the rest of the public hearing. And should the board consider adoption of the ordinance, I'd urge you to do so with the amended date in that second whereas clause to July 3rd, 2021. Be happy to answer questions.
Very good. Thank you, Council Gross. I happen to know that we do have public comment, which I'm opening it up to public comment now, this item. And I will read, and this again was originally received on May 19th. The Truckee-Donner Public Utility District does a great job in providing reliable power and high quality water to its customers. Ratepayers are quite satisfied in that regard. However, there is room for improvement in other areas. The board of directors can do better. Why did the board relax the education and managerial experience requirements for the general manager position after Peckham and McKinney had released the hiring brochure? Originally, in both the 2020 and 2021 executive searches, a bachelor's degree was required. Then, at some point during the process, it was no longer required. Also required were 5 to 10 years of executive management experience. This requirement was also relaxed. Why did the requirements change midstream? In this light, the selection of Brian Wright as the new GM appears to be a predetermined selection. Why did the board allocate tens of thousands of ratepayer dollars retaining Peckham and McKinney to conduct a second search for a new GM? Was it to fulfill some regulations and give the appearance that it was a legitimate search? It appears that the criteria were changed to fit the pre-selected candidate rather than selecting from qualified applicants per the original advertised search criteria. The process the board ultimately followed was not fair to fully qualified applicants. It was not fair to those who may not have applied in the first place because they didn't meet those originally advertised requirements. I hope Brian Wright does great things for the TDPUD. However, it does not appear that the process was geared to find the best candidate, the person with the experience, appropriate education, and the best temperament and aptitude for this GM position. It was geared to conveniently pre-select one candidate, Brian Wright, period. Next, I would like to know if there is a plan to reinstate in-person board meetings when the California COVID regulations allow. I would like these questions presented and answered. The public deserves your acknowledgement, your attention, and your answers. Thank you. Sincerely, Becky Mazur. So I will indeed address all of your points. To your first point, I agree that the board can do better, and we are continually trying to do so. We are on a continual path of betterment. Secondly, and I believe that Council Gross did touch on this in his presentation, we did not retain Peckham and McKinney for tens of thousands of ratepayer dollars for a second GM search. Peckham and McKinney has a satisfaction guarantee, which they honored. And the second search was done for only the hard costs, things like printing and distribution of recruitment materials. I did speak with Drew, who was our recruiter, last Thursday, and he let me know that he is finalizing those receipts. And we will, of course, include them, the final tally, in our disbursements when they are paid. And I will make sure to point that out at that meeting when they appear. And then to address what seems to be your main concern, that we relaxed our requirements. In no way did we relax our requirements. The qualifications that we listed in our recruitment materials are tools that we can use to gauge whether a candidate can do the job. The real and only requirement is that the candidate can do the job. And Brian has had the dubious benefit of being with us and actually doing the job for most of the last 14 months. In other words, we had ample opportunity to see what he can accomplish. And this, I'm going to hazard a guess, was the most challenging year this PUD has seen in decades, with multiple changes of leadership, with a pandemic, with a rate hike, with a strategic plan, something the district has never embarked upon before, a lot of public outreach surrounding it. And so based on his performance, we gave Brian the consideration that he has earned. In no way was this outcome predetermined. We absolutely gave every candidate our honest, sincere attention and consideration. And the competition was fierce, and we had great candidates. So, in other words, there are a lot of cliches that fit this situation, but I'm going to land on, if the shoe fits, wear it. It's just, that's how it works. So you are, of course, free to disagree with our decision. But this board takes its responsibility seriously. There was nothing nefarious or unfair or dishonest about our process or our deliberations. Brian may not have checked the traditional boxes, but he has more than proved that he can do the job, and he gets the job done. And I am very excited to move forward, working together to do great things for the PUD. And the final question, when are we going to reinstate in-person board meetings? That item will be agendized for our next meeting, and the board will have an opportunity to discuss that amongst ourselves and with staff and decide how and when we want to move forward with that. And that is it for me in response to Ms. Mazur's comments. And I hope I was thorough enough in addressing them for her. Shauna, do we have any other comments this evening?
Thank you, Madam President. I have a comment from Kim Nolan, and I will read. Thanks to the board for all your hard work in confirming a new general manager. I appreciate Brian Wright's commitment to 100% green energy and providing an alternate internet provider with the PUD's existing infrastructure. I think a good choice was made, and I look forward to seeing all that this team can accomplish moving forward. I have another comment from Mike Wolf. Truckee Donner PUD Board, general comment regarding the new GM. I appreciate everything everyone on the board has been working for, and for the selection of Brian for the GM seems to fit the goals of the PUD and the residents of the town. With the work you all have done and are doing and the drive of the new GM, the PUD will be able to bring to light all of the forward-thinking projects in the works. Thank you, Mike. I have a public comment from David Diamond, VP of the Truckee Tahoe Airport District. I want to congratulate the board on the selection of Brian Wright as your new GM. I'm not only confident that Brian will be a solid leadership to the PUD, I am equally confident that the five of you offer perfect balance and perspectives Brian will need to become an outstanding GM, trusted and respected by PUD staff and the public we serve and yourselves. Together, you can ensure our PUD remains a functional, respected agency. And elected officials, we work for the people of one of the world's outstanding regions. They voted us in and they entrust us to make good decisions on their behalf. You have a solid foundation now from which to move forward, so let's move forward. Let's work together as agencies, always in deference to the will and for the benefit of the people whom we serve. On a more personal note, thank you from the Prosser Lakeview residents for whatever magic the PUD crews did a few years back to improve our service reliability. When I see your field crews, I smile and wave because I no longer fear the big winter storms. A public comment from David Keene. I strongly support the selection of Brian Wright as general manager. The board of directors made the right decision in selecting someone with an established record of successful management. Mr. Wright's management of the PUD during a difficult time has been exemplary. The PUD ran a successful strategic planning process with extensive community input during a pandemic while keeping our lights on and water flowing. This was a huge accomplishment. I look forward to supporting Mr. Wright and the PUD in their move to a more sustainable future for Truckee. And finally, Tanya Africa. I just wanted to voice my support for the excellent job the current PUD board is doing and their choice of Brian Wright as the new GM. I appreciate the speedy and thoughtful process they've used to identify the best candidate for our community. Brian is a great choice. The 72% approval rating the PUD received in their community survey is a reflection of the work Brian has done, including extensive public outreach to inform the PUD's new strategic plan. I believe the PUD shares my passion for moving our community to sustainable and renewable energy sources, and I trust Brian to manage this complex and exciting transition. And that's all I have, Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it from the public. Yeah, really, thank you. There's a raised hand. Oh, was that me that raised my hand? Oh, sorry. I'm learning new things all the time. I apologize. I am now going to close the hearing if there are no other comments. and we can move on to either director comments, if we have any, or to entertain a motion. Yes, Director Laliotis.
Sure. Thanks, Krista. Yeah, I just want to start off by congratulating Brian Wright as being selected by this board to serve the employees and the customers of the Truckee Downer PUD as their next general manager. I think we all know the past 15 months has been nothing short of a challenge for all of us, both on the personal and professional fronts in dealing with COVID-related impacts, protecting the health and safety of our employees, this community, and most importantly, our families. 6 months ago, Brian Wright accepted the appointment as interim general manager during a time of extreme COVID-related impacts and the beginning of a largely unsettled period for this organization. Rather than standing back in the face of adversity, Brian accepted the challenge, took the reins of a complex strategic plan process, navigated the challenges of COVID, and continued to pursue the goals of developing organizational values and culture within the organization, all in addition to effectively managing the overall operation. I want to point out a quick leadership tip. Author Angela Duckworth, who was introduced to me by Pam Hobday, the book by that author, defines the leadership term of grit as passion and perseverance for long-term goals. She goes on to describe the term resilience as the idea of a positive response to failure or adversity, and that resilience is a key trait of those who have grit. Further, the organization Conant Leadership states that leaders who do the best can stay the course in the face of adversity and are motivated by goals much larger than themselves. I believe Brian Wright accepted the position of interim general manager largely in part that he truly believes in these concepts, and his performance over the last 6 months has demonstrated just that. He has grit. This hiring process had the board interviewing 3 highly qualified candidates, including Brian. I believe we spent the better part of 20 hours in that boardroom interviewing candidates and deliberating. The conclusion of the process for me was that Brian's diverse utility work experience, his dedication to this community and this organization, and his strong, unwavering, and resilient performance over the last 6 months allowed Brian to rise to the top. I am super excited for this next chapter in continuing to fulfill the mission of the district with Brian at the helm, and I've heard the same from many community members. So I just want to extend my congratulations to Brian Wright.
Thank you very much, Director Laliotis. Do we have any other director comments?
Yeah, I want to thank Tony for what he said and the words, how he put them together. It's exactly like if I could do them as good as he could, I would have said the same thing. I thank you, Tony, again, for supporting Brian, and I think the same way you do, is the words that you said. So thanks you, and I want to thank you, Krista, for your comments on the questions from our repair, and I'm with you all the way on those. Thank you.
Thank you, Guerra. Director Bender, I see that you're not.
I did not write a speech, so thank you, President Finn. Thank you, Vice President Laliotis. Those you summarized just the process and responding to those questions from a ratepayer, really. And Tony just summarizing the whole very challenging, difficult process that we've all had. And you really summed it up. Brian really took the challenge, has the grit, and got us through all these difficult times. So I am super excited to move forward with him at the helm of the PUD. So thank you for summarizing all this. Brian, congratulations. Really looking forward to you at the helm with the PUD, the respect from staff and the hard work, and it's been rough, but man, the benefits and the bonding and the learning and improving, and just you showing again that grit and getting us through this, and now with a pretty awesome strategic plan. So super excited. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Bender. Okay, well, I have one last item that I need to point out for Director Harris's benefit. Now is when we publicly vote on this ordinance. Your director's statement from our May 19th meeting was an ethical and legal violation of our closed session protocol. We do not discuss closed session deliberations outside of closed session. I hope that is very clear to you at this point. So now I am going to entertain a motion to pass this ordinance.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Shauna, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Steve.
Excuse me, Kristen, may I clarify that the motion would be to adopt the ordinance with the amendment that I suggested, changing the July 2nd date to July 3rd, 2021?
And also
Yes.
that the agreement is in the ordinance.
Yeah, I wrote it down and then forgot to say it. Thank you. So to adopt it as amended by Council Gross with the date change. So now, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. Director Aguirre,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
I'm going to abstain.
Vice President Laliotis,
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, that closes out our public hearings for the night, which brings us to the consent calendar.
President Finn, if I might just have a quick word.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mind has left. I feel like I'm done. And congratulations, Brian. Also, that is my quick word to you before your quick word. So thank you.
Thank you very much to the board, to staff, to the community, the ratepayers. This is a tremendous honor, and it's a tremendous responsibility. And that's, again, not lost on me. And I am humbled by the compliments, and I embrace the critique. I think it would be disingenuous to accept the compliments without the criticism. And I agree with Ms. Mazur that there is room for improvement, and we're going to strive for that. And so I look forward to engaging with the community, staff, on what that improvement looks like. There was a lot of compliments about what we've accomplished over the last 16 months, 15 months, and I would like to expand that. Since the last 93 years, this district has continued to improve, continued to build, and it's, there's a lot to credit to our past general managers, our past leaders, our past staff, and the community. They say it takes a village, and I don't want to call Truckee a village. It's a collection of communities here, and it takes a community for this to be successful. We saw that with the strategic planning process, the invaluable input we got across all of the community on what the future looks like for us, painting that landscape. And that's my commitment as the next general manager of this district is, pursuing towards that landscape that we all painted over the last 9 months. Sure, COVID was a huge challenge for us, and staff did a tremendous job of providing service all throughout that pandemic, and we continue to. And I want to give credit to the staff and the leadership team. That credit isn't to me or the other general managers. That's for the employees and the community here at large. And I think it's important moving forward. We're seeing that through the strategic planning process that we've just recently completed. We're continuing to get engagement, and I'm extremely excited. I'm extremely excited to kind of charge forward with this team that we have, all 65 to 75 employees that might grow in the future, the community, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. And, you know, it's an exciting time here for this community and this district. Finally, I want to thank this board. Director Laliotis, your comments were inspiring and complimentary. Thank you very much. I hope to carry forward that grit that you expect, that this community expects, and thank you very much. This is a tremendous, tremendous honor.
Thank
Madam
you.
President, I'd like to say one thing.
Please.
Thank you for your words, Brian. But at least we cannot forget that we just received an award very recently that we were the best public district, utility district in the country. And that award seems to sum it all up, that our staff, our whole staff, administrative all the way down to us, has done their part, and they've done some very good work, or we wouldn't have got that award. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I agree with you, Director Aguirre. We are the best utility in the country. Our award was for the RP3 Diamond designation for reliability and resiliency and safety. But I do not disagree with you. We are the best public utility district in the country.
Thank you, Brian.
And we will strive to be even better. I am also excited to move forward and see what we can accomplish. Okay, thank you all. And now I'm going to move on to the consent calendar. Does anybody have anything that they wanted to pull from the consent calendar or comment on? No, me neither. Okay. Can we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Steve would like you to ask for public comment.
I'm
You're
sorry.
clairvoyant, Director Bender. Yes.
Night. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar?
No, Madam President.
I'll move the consent calendar. I just want to make one quick comment that I appreciate staff moving forward with all the other agencies on the aerial mapping tool. It is, I'll be honest with you, it's a tool I use every day here in Tahoe City PUD, and it's invaluable. It has invaluable data and invaluable value to these agencies. So I appreciate the partnership and the ability to bring this technology to this community. It's a great tool for our industry.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. And did you start that with a motion?
I believe I did.
I thought you did too. Can we get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Director Aguirre.
Yes.
Director Bender.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Here we go. Action items. Action item number 16 is consideration of the audited financial report for your fiscal year 20. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Salmon for this presentation. You're muted. Mike, you're muted.
Thank you, President Finn. Members of the board, good evening. So I'll try and move as quickly as possible on this. We do have Moss Adams on the Zoom call, and I'll introduce them in a moment. So the action item number 16 is the 2020 audited financial statements. The district is required to have its financial records audited each year. The board is responsible for hiring the auditors, and the auditors present their findings directly to the board. The auditors provide an opinion as to whether the financial statements present the district's financial position in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, also known as GAAP. Historically, there are two financial reports created, consolidated, which includes primary government water and electric utilities, as well as the CFDs that we administer. And then we issue separate financial statements that exclude the CFDs. New for this 2020 year, I've mentioned it in previous meetings, I believe during the strategic planning. We're also tackling a comprehensive annual financial report, also known as the annual report. And basically it puts a sandwich around the main financial statements and includes an introductory section that gives a history of the utility and some good background on the district utility. Then there's a full set of financial statements. And then there's 30 to 40 pages in the back of statistical information that provides good insight from a historical perspective for the last, a lot of it's for the last 10 years. I'm sure you might have seen a comprehensive annual financial report for the town or some other government agencies. So we're going to do one here. We will also be submitting the report to the GFOA, which provides a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting, assuming I get through the 50-page, over 800 items checklist for the comprehensive annual financial report. So real close on that. It's exciting. Moss Adams, again, this year conducted the fiscal year 20 audit. And they're on the line with the Zoom call here to present to the board of directors. We had planned Keith Simovic and Jared Brownson to present. Keith had an emergency come up this afternoon, so we have Julie Desimone helping out that works with the team there as well. So with that, I'd like for them to join the call and get started.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Michael, for that introduction, and it's great being here tonight. Let me, stop me as we go through this presentation. If you do have any questions, or we'll take questions towards the end of the presentation. But again, my name is Julie. I'm a partner with Moss Adams. I see several faces that I recognize, I've seen before, and it's great to see you again tonight. So, Michael, should I be doing the slide deck? Oh, you got it. Great. So what we're going to cover tonight, we're going to talk a little bit through the engagement team, what we did as a part of the audit, the nature of the services we provided, some significant audit areas, and our response to COVID. I think it's really important that the board understand what we did from a remote working and how we altered procedures this year. We'll talk about the audit opinions and the reports and give you the substance of the audit, and then some required communications that we need to make as your external auditor. So first is the engagement team. Pictures, love the pictures. I think this was Jared back about 20 years ago, but this is your engagement team. I am the partner and the technical resource. I lead our power, utilities, and renewable energy practice for the firm, and I've been working in power and utilities for my entire 21 years with the firm and as a public accountant. Scott Simpson is our concurring reviewer. It's very important to note what our QC procedures are for the firm. So Scott serves as our cold reviewer. This means that he has no connection to your management team or to Truckee except for kind of being the gatekeeper for the audit. So he is required before we start the audit to look at our risk assessment, look at our planning, look through our procedures, make sure he signs off on the audit plan, is comfortable with our risk assessment and fraud risk assessment. Then we complete our procedures, and he is involved at the end of the audit as well. So he comes in and takes a look at your financial reporting, makes sure that it's technically accurate and does not include management or auditor bias whatsoever. He takes a look at all of our conclusions, our high risk areas, and we can't actually clear the audit and issue the opinions until Scott signs off on it. Scott's been serving as a concurring reviewer for almost 30 years, or actually as an engagement reviewer and concurring reviewer for almost 30 years. and is well versed within the power and utilities practice. So Keith is our engagement reviewer. He has been working for over 10 years, and hope right now we're putting up for partners for next year. So hope that he's on the partner track. And he really wishes he could be here tonight. But as Michael stated, he's got some family problems that he needs to focus on. And then I will let Jared, when he gets to his part, I'll let him introduce himself. But Jared was the senior manager on the engagement, senior/manager on the engagement. He's really the one that kept everything moving in the right direction to get to the end of the audit. So it's important for you to understand, or us to communicate, is what we do and what's different between what we do and what management does. So we're an independent auditor who places an opinion upon your financial statements and your consolidated financial statements. We do that through a use of a lot of different types of testing. So we can look at your internal controls, or we do look at your internal controls, both IT and the human controls that have to be present at a utility. Second, we look at the analytical procedures and substantive tested details. We'll look at actual source documents. We have to look at every part of your organization and risk assess. So what's risky in the organization? And I can give you a quick idea of that. Like, one of the things that changed this year was obviously your AR and your allowance for doubtful accounts and how you assess that. With everything that's been going on in the COVID environment, there's no way. Usually what utilities do is look at historical numbers. How does the historical trends look? And then we can assess our allowance based on historical trends. But we kind of had to throw that idea out of the window today or this year, because shutoff procedures just weren't instituted for the majority of the year. So as that happened, we had to rethink, how are we going to test that? How do we ensure that management doesn't have any bias when coming to that estimate? So that's just one example of many of how our audits alter from year to year. So we'll help with the technical review of the financial statements. All that work that goes into preparing those financial statements or management. What we do is we take a look at them, provide comment, opinions upon them, and then provide that back to management. And then finally, what we're doing here today is we're communicating to those charged with governance, the board, to ensure that you know what happened during the course of our audit. I'm going to turn it over to Jared for a moment to talk about our significant audit areas. Jared, you may be on mute. I can't actually see him. Nope. Oh, there you go. There you go. Perfect.
All right, we're good now. All right, sorry, my headphone was a little loose in the jack there, so good to go. Hello, everybody. My name is Jared. I've been with Moss for 4 years now. I served as the senior on the audit this year, so in that role, I was essentially the point person communicating any sort of open items and kind of leading our team as we worked through our audit procedures. So some significant audit areas that we tested this year included the classification of work orders, whether open or closed at year end, customer billings and their consistency with district defined rates. As Julie mentioned, we also looked at accounts receivable and management's evaluation of the allowance for doubtful accounts. We tested internal controls and the consistent application of those controls in the remote work environment as the district moved into the COVID situation. And then we also tested IT security and access for certain significant financial close and reporting systems. In terms of our audit response to COVID, so similar to how we're doing the board meeting tonight, we performed the audit in a remote environment. To do this, we utilized certain technological and electronic audit tools. We have an online share file that allowed us to securely transfer files with management so that we could look at different supporting documents. We also had certain video teleconferencing meetings such as this one with share screen capabilities, so we could kind of get that over the shoulder type experience as we worked through some of our testing items. As Julia had earlier mentioned, we had updated certain risk assessments around accounts receivable and internal controls in response to COVID. And we tested internal control transactions before and after COVID to ensure they were consistently applied. And then finally, we reviewed the related disclosures on the district's financial statements for transparency of the COVID pandemic.
Perfect. So I want to take it back over. Pleased to report, this is the good news. Pleased to report once again, the district obtained an unmodified in auditor speak. That is our clean opinion. That is exactly what you as a board of directors would expect and want. It is what your ratepayers want to see, any debt holders want to see, any counterparties, key stakeholders to the organization want to see that and expect to see that unmodified opinion. So great work. It's interesting as we come down to the culmination of the audit process, the just amount of sheer work that goes into this. You had a lot of change over this year from both a management perspective and an accounting department perspective. And they didn't miss a beat. I mean, it was very well done, especially when you introduce something like the pandemic that was just hard to determine what the next day was going to look like. So we recognize how much work was done with that, and the fact that we're sitting here talking to you today and didn't have to move the audit back by months, or which I will say we had to do with several of our audits as the remote working experience was interesting, but really appreciate all the hard work that staff did to get into and not only get to understand the audit process, to get us all the information in a timely fashion and get to this meeting today. So you also received it for the primary government. Both of those sets of financial statements received that unmodified opinion. And pleased to report as well that we did not find any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls. Jared's going to take a moment in just a second to talk through a little bit of our findings, but ultimately, when we think about material weaknesses and significant deficiency, what's that mean? Well, I like to explain it as a ship, and you want the whole of the ship to make sure that it's consistent and it's not going to sink. So a material weakness is one of those that you've got a really big hole in the hole. Yeah, you got a really big hole that is going to sink the ship at some point in time. A significant deficiency is smaller holes, but over time, those can either grow or accumulate to something significant. So we need to make sure those holes are plugged. And your internal control structure in the COVID environment is very strong. So we want to make sure that we pass that along to the board. So here's some required communications, and this also is included to the letter. I promise I'm not going to speak all the words that are sitting in our letter that we drafted for that we published for the board of directors. But this is some required communications. It's important to know what our responsibility for the audit is versus management's responsibility. Management's responsibility is to run the organization. We need to be able to come in and obtain sufficient information in order to place an opinion upon the financial statements, but we can't make any managerial decisions. And at absolutely no time during the audit process did management ever even consider asking us to. It's very obvious during the course of this audit that management does their role and we do ours. And I can tell you from a lot of experience that that is not always the case in every utility that we walk through. Significant accounting policies are important to note because these, as different accounting policies either come up, they usually come up from accounting standard changes or operational changes to the entity. If you have a major significant accounting policy change, what you looked at last year, the numbers for last year, it might be apples to oranges, not apples to apples. So we need to let you know when any of those changes occur. There were actually supposed to be some changes in the current year. However, because of COVID, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board pushed all standards back for a 12 to 18 month period. Of course, we're going to take advantage of that, or not we, management is going to take advantage of that. And we didn't have any impact to the financial statements. This is important because, quite honestly, the management team needs to be focused on the business, not on trying to apply new accounting standards. We do take a hefty look at your management judgments and accounting estimates. Not every single number within the financial statements is a hard number. Something like cash. Yes, we know exactly how much cash you have at the organization. We don't know how long your assets are going to depreciate over, how long they'll be used, what their exact useful life for every single asset. That has to be estimated based on industry norms and management judgment. What we need to do is we need to understand those judgments and estimates and determine whether or not we believe that any management bias exists and that there are long industry norms, which we believe to be the case. Jared's going to talk in just a second about the audit adjustments made in past. We do not know of any other management consultations with other accountants. This really gets to opinion shopping. If management didn't like the way that we were thinking about something and went off to another firm to get a second opinion, we just need to let you know whether that's occurring, which did not occur. We had no disagreements with management or difficulties in performing the audit. And stepping back with that one, I think it's important to understand what disagreements, this really gets to handcuffing. This doesn't mean that there might be times where management will provide information and we completely agreed with it 100% of the time. This really gets to what is the other information that we can come about? Did we get access to all the employees that we needed to talk to, the information that we needed to look at in order to make our opinion on the financial statement? So those are the disagreements that we're talking about from the handcuffing standpoint of the audit that we need to let the board know about. None of those occurred. We got access to every employee that we needed to talk to. We got access to all the information and documentation that we needed in order to place an opinion upon the financial statement. I think the difficulties performed, one key thing is just the amount of planning that goes in the audit and now communication between the management team, the accounting department, and the auditors. So a lot of hard work, just especially in this virtual environment when we're not sitting physically in the location. It was completed this year, and we really appreciate the smoothness of the audit as well. So Jared?
Awesome. Thanks, Julie. In terms of audit adjustments, we did not have any material audit adjustments this year. We did have one passed on reclassification adjustment related to work orders. During our audit procedures, we noted about 20 work orders that had been placed into commercial service prior to Q4 of 2020, but were still open and listed as we're still open as of year end and were not placed in service. The total scope of this was approximately $998,000. As those assets do have a pretty long useful life, we evaluated that impact on depreciation expense and noted it was below our posting threshold. And then in terms of internal control recommendations, so along the lines of that work order close process, we had a recommendation to management that they have a timely process for closing those. We know there's always a little bit of a delay between when an asset goes in service and when the work order is closed. We would generally expect things to be closed out within 90 days of the asset placed in service. We also had a best practice recommendation. We noted that any new vendors added to the master vendor file were reviewed, but once they were in that file, any changes that were made were not consistently reviewed. So we recommended to management that any changes to any vendors in the master vendor file are reviewed. And then finally, we also had a best practice recommendation related to the review of user access and significant financial close and reporting systems. That review is being performed, but we just didn't see consistent documentation of the review being performed. So the recommendation there is just that there's consistent documentation of that process occurring. And then just wanted to take a quick moment to acknowledge and thank Mike and Melanie as we work through the audit this year. Through some turnover in the department and with COVID, I know it was a very challenging and difficult year, but they were very helpful and friendly, and on top of things, we got audit documentation timely, which helped keep the audit moving forward. All personnel that we communicated with were very courteous and responsive and had a focus on fulfilling our audit needs, and we felt like the tone at the top established by management was very helpful, candid, and open.
So I believe that's all we have in our planned responses. We provided our contact information again at any time. We're open to talking with the board members. But happy to entertain any questions that you might have and I will turn all those questions over to Jared.
Right on. Thank you so much, Julie, for your presentation, and Jared for being here. Do we have any public comments on this action item? Nope.
No, Madam President.
Okay. Oh, it went back to Mr. Salmon. Okay. Feel like I jumped ahead a little bit with that, asking for a public comment, but I think no harm done. I'm going to open it up to board conversation at this point. And I can't see everybody, so let's see.
I'll pipe in. This is Director Harris. I just wanted to thank you guys. As a former auditor myself, I understand the challenges that can happen going to a location, but I can't even imagine how you guys did it from remote locations. So I appreciate your efforts, and you've been a consistent auditor for the district, and I do appreciate your service with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Harris. Do we have any other directors who would have any comments or questions on our audited financial statements for fiscal year 20?
I don't have any comments or questions. Just want to thank Julie, and do appreciate seeing you every year. And hopefully Keith's okay. And I do appreciate Moss Adams's efforts to keep our financial reports and audits moving in the right direction. But I also want to recognize Mike for coming on board and being able to get this process moving forward without a hitch. It takes a lot of effort on his staff, him and his staff's part, to feed this information to Julie and her staff. And I can only imagine, as Director Harris stated, the challenges with COVID to keep that process moving forward. So I want to just thank Mike and his staff, and Julie and her staff for keeping everything going and giving us this another clean audited financial report. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. Do we have any other director comments or questions?
No questions from me. Just really appreciate the hard work. So a lot of effort, Julie, Jared, and your other members diving in, and PUD, Mike and Melanie, thank you very much. So it's really nice to see the clean audit, and keep up the good work, and good to see the Moss Adams team. So thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you, Director.
I want to thank the auditors. Julie, thank you very much for your presentation. And I think that this district and your firm work very well together. I kind of appreciate the thank you gave our employees for being on a timely manner with you folks. But like I said before, we didn't get an award because our employees are not doing their good job. Thank you again.
Thank you, Director Aguera. And I am going to echo all of that. I am very grateful that there are people in this world that are really passionate about this subject, and that includes staff and Moss Adams. And I'm very pleased that this really challenging year, and we still managed to get things done on time and well. So I just really appreciate all of the hard work that's gone into this. Which brings us to the staff recommendation for us to accept this final draft audited financial reports for fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020, consolidated and primary government only. So, since this is an action item, I'm assuming we need to make a motion.
I move to accept the final draft audited financial reports for fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020, consolidated and primary government only.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Director Aguera.
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis,
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. That brings us to action item number 17. It looks like Michael Salmon is in the hot seat for the rest of the night here. This is our annual review of the district's investment policy. So we're going to review the investment policy, and then we are going to delegate. Well, we shall see what we're going to do. Michael Salmon.
Thank you.
We'd love to hear what you have to say.
I'd like to just quickly thank Moss Adams and Jared and the team, and in particularly also on our team, Melanie Reeves. I couldn't have done it without her. And so it was a great first year audit, all things considered, with COVID and everything else. So good to get it behind us, that's for sure.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. Annual investment policy review. Action item 17. The board reviews the district's investment policy annually. It was in the staff report as attachment 1, the fine print of District Code Title 3, Chapter 3.20, subparagraphs starting at 012. Staff is not recommending any changes to that investment policy. It's a good investment policy. It's very benign. It's very controlled by California law with respect to governmental agencies and special districts, and we're in compliance with that in our policy. So we're not recommending any changes to that. And again, that was provided as attachment 1 for board review. Another item per California government code is each year the board delegates authority to the treasurer, which is myself, certain duties described in the investment policy. This is the fine print of that section, which I will not read that full thing. So subject to review, the legislative body, i.e. the board, may renew their delegation of authority pursuant to this section to the treasurer, myself. So currently the district's investments are comprised of 3 cash equivalent, also known as liquid government investment pool funds, channels, if you will. One is called LAIF, Local Agency Investment Fund, managed by California State Treasurer. Have a lot of cash funds invested in that, like a lot of districts. We also utilize Placer County's Treasurer's Pool Investment Fund to spread some of that and gain some additional yield depending on what their yields are looking like versus LAIF's. And then we also utilize Utah's Public Treasury Fund that's similar to LAIF in California, and we are authorized to use that via our JPA membership in UAMS. Important to know on investment yields, back in March of 2020 is on the left and March of 2021 is on the right. And you can see yields moving from about 1.8 to about 0.4, 0.3. I know this is not news to any of you, but it is well below expectations in budget and expectations of most everyone for many years, and it's pretty flat, getting very low. To put that impact in perspective, with 30 million in cash or funds available to invest at 1.5%, that's 450,000 in investment income. If it's down where it's at now at close to 0.3%, that's 90,000 of investment income. The current Fed's fund rate is 0 to 0.25, and the consensus view is that the Fed funds rate will remain unchanged through the end of 2023. Now that's a bit like going to one of the casinos down in Reno or anywhere else as far as what the Fed's really going to happen in the next few years. But the current consensus is that the rates will remain low for the foreseeable future. Current yield on our three pools combined is 0.34, much lower than the budget expectations that were around 1%. I've looked into this, our options regarding trying to improve our yields while still remaining in compliance with the investment policy, which is good, and California regulatory requirements, which is good. There are many agencies and governmental entities out there that use a managed fund approach. They typically have much more significant dollar level of funds than we have here. I also know that in my experience, we aren't talking about complicated investment portfolio management. We're talking about very basic, fundamental Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. When you go beyond these pooled funds, you're not talking about what stock to pick. You're talking about 4 or 5 different investment vehicles. There's very few that fall that preserve principal and are not a risky investment. and there's a fee for managing funds. Another angle that I'm currently recommending here in this report is to utilize a broker that we've identified, Time Value Investments, to allow us to get some of the funds out of the 3 pooled funds, probably out of LAIF, and into some investment securities with 3 to 4 year type maturity levels that will improve our yield, essentially double our yield from the 0.34 to about 0.6, which is better than nothing. So that's kind of the nutshell of what I'm recommending. TVI's presentation is provided as attachment 2 in the staff report. They have over 400 public agencies with accounts, including over 70 in California. The relationship manager I've been working with is very conversant in California specific restrictions and the governmental code and our investment policy. These are a few of the California agencies that TVI handles. Fiscal impact. I try my best to be conservative. I'm not sure if I'm definitely not super conservative, and about $110,000 shortfall to budget this year. It could be a little bit more than that. So once we get through June close and do the year semi-annual mid-year update to the board, I'll be updating that figure. TVI, we're already in June. If we can get a half a year of something with a little bit better yield than what the investment pools provide us, we can make a dent in that for this year. And then on an annualized basis, it's about $50,000, investing about $10 million in something non-treasury pool, but still in compliance with regulations and our policy. So with that, I'll open it up to questions from the board or public comment, however President Finn would like to proceed.
That is how I would like to proceed. First, I will open it up to public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No, Madam President.
Thank you. And now I will open it up to board discussion. Would anybody like to get the ball rolling? No. Oh, there's Director Bender. You're unmuted.
Yeah, I think I like Mike's recommendation. I just Googled them, time value investments. So they serve a lot of public entities, and so I don't have any issues. I like Mike's recommendation, and to give him that authorize the GM. So I'm good with all that. Thanks.
Director Bender. Director Harris.
I just had a question. Nice presentation. It's always good to have your money working for you, that's for sure. So the time value investments broker, how did you find them? Did they approach us, or is it something that you go out to bid for, or just out of curiosity?
I believe they called me from a reference from another agency. I did reach out to the investment advisors from various town of Truckee and other agencies here regionally, and who they were utilizing. And I got I received a quote. One was a quote for a fair chunk of change, a percentage of the funds invested, to simply manage the funds. And then remember, they're still going to have to go broker and buy the individual investments as well. So that was not cost effective. And then the other one didn't want to talk to us unless it was closer to everything we have managed by them, which I don't recommend. It's just not necessary. A broker is kind of straight lining to the floor of the stock exchange, to buy Fannie Mae's, a treasury strip. It was in TVI's presentation on page 8. And I'll work through them to, specifically as far as brokers, there's hundreds of brokers that we could utilize, and you're splitting hairs as far as whether it's, they're going to have this, they all go to the same well to offer their investments. I did this for about 15 years at other places, and I had 3 different brokers managing the presenting me with CDs and treasuries, and they'd all come back with the exact same banks on the same day, as far as what they offer and yields and things like that. So
good. It sounds like you've done your due diligence in that, and it's always good to hear that other agencies have had good experience with them. So
I have done a couple of reference checks on time value. Yes.
Good.
Thank you, Director Harris. Director Laliotis or Director Aguera?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Quick question, just give me your sort of 30-second synopsis on, what the difference is between, the 3 types of funds we're in as far as risk with moving to some of the money to TVI.
Well, so remember TVI, we're not investing with TVI. They're simply the transaction executor for us. We're investing in treasuries. There's in the United States, at least that I'm aware of, there's really nothing more highly rated than U.S. treasuries, and right behind that is Fannie Mae's and Federal Farm Bank, Federal Home Loan Bank. These are all AAA rated agencies. They are bonds. They do carry a risk. The LAIF funds, et cetera, and Placer County are all, they're not guaranteed funds, but they're an investment pool with hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, close to billions of dollars invested through a state level agency, and they are more liquid. So those 3 pools are essentially almost like cash for us. So if we needed $3 million that was in LAIF, I can do a transaction very quickly with approvals to do a transfer into the right account. Versus once we invest some of these funds in a specific bond or treasury security, we would have to sell it, and there would be some interest rate risk exposure. Typically not great, but there would be some interest rate exposure if we needed all that portion of cash liquidated.
Okay, so we're talking about we have about what, total of 30 million?
We have over 30 million, and I'm requesting up to 10 million invested in non-pool securities.
Okay. All right. No, thanks for answering that question. I'm not a financial investment guru by any means. So,
for example, a good portion of it could be put in the electric rate reserve. That's I believe over $6 million. A portion of it could be from that channel, that reserve fund, if you will, knowing that if we need some of that money, it's not likely to be all of it, knock on wood. But in the foreseeable future, the average maturity for these investments is in the 3.5 to 4 year range.
Okay. No, I'm comfortable. I mean, I think it's a good slice of the pie to, understand that it may not be available in a timely fashion. But that, we still have roughly 66% of our investment portfolio in a little bit more accessible funds, or locations. So I'm good with it.
Michael, you want us to change brokers, or do we have a broker now? Or you just want to go to time value investments?
For right now, I'm asking to add it or add a new broker, and we do not currently have a broker. I could foresee in 6 months to a year, perhaps in the next annual review, recommending to add another broker. Or if I don't get the service I'm looking for, it might be next month. But,
Okay. But your recommendation right now is to go with time value investment?
my recommendation is to go with time value investments as a
Okay.
broker. Currently, we'll see how it goes.
I'm sorry.
I have good confidence from my review of time value investments and discussions with them, as well as reference checks, that time value investments is going to be a good avenue for us. For the foreseeable future.
Good. You're the delegate authority. You have the authority right now as treasurer to invest or change our funds into another investment, right? Now, do we have to renew that every year, or is this just going to continue on like this?
We need to do it every year, and to go beyond the pooled funds that have been authorized, I need board's approval, which I'm seeking today.
That's why C is on the screen now. Then,
Yes,
I'll go with. I'll go with both of them because the first one is recommended, and Mike is our man to have the authority to do this stuff.
Do that.
I'm
Thank you.
not sure if that was a motion, but
Well,
I'll,
I don't see a motion on here, kind of proper, but what do you want me to do? Make a motion?
I have just a quick,
B and C? What happened to A?
Joe, just say I move staff's recommendation.
I move staff's recommendation. Thank you, Tony.
I'll second staff's
Okay.
recommendation.
I didn't have any material to add, so let's go ahead and have a roll call vote, please.
Krista, I'm sorry. Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, you may.
So with respect to recommendation A, it is to review the policy and provide direction as needed. And what I've heard is that it appears that there's no change needed to the policy. And so I just want to understand, is the recommendation to then approve the policy as is, for this year, which is what the policy asks us to do, review and approve it annually. So that's, I understand A to review the code and to adopt it in its present form. Is that correct, Mike? Is that what you're looking for?
that's correct, Steve. Thank you.
Okay.
And then the motion would include the B and C?
Yes.
Okay, it would be the three-part motion. As staff recommended. That's what I voted on, or moved on. Thank you, Steve.
Very good. Yeah, thank you for the clarification. Do we have a second?
20 seconds.
I'll second again.
Thank you. Thank you. In which case, now can we get a roll call vote?
Thank you. Director Aguirre,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis,
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for that. Doubling our money on $10 million from 0.3 to 0.6 is exciting. But thank you very much for, start making these little tweaks. So moving on to action item number 18, payoff of, oh boy, too many acronyms for me. CADWR SRF loan related to the Donner Lake water system. So this is the potential to pay off early our Donner Lake water system. So once again, Michael Salmon.
All right. Thank you, President Finn, members of the board. Is my screen share the appropriate item 18? Okay. I'll proceed then. So this is a little bit of a history road. Back in 2001, the district and the community of Donner Lake formed the Donner Lake Assessment District to fund Donner Lake's private water system and systems improvements specific to Donner Lake customers, which were acquired by the district. The acquisition of the system improvements to the system occurred in 2001 through 2005. It was a drawn out process for those of you that were around. And the cost was greater than forecasted. And the Donner Lake Assessment District, established in 2001, established an assessment amount that started in the 2001-2002 tax year. And the acquisition actually occurred through 2001 and 2005. And the SRF loan, the subject loan we're talking about today, the Department of Water Resources State Revolving Fund 20-year loan, was drawn and payments started in 2006. So there was important to understand that the assessment district started and collected assessment dollars prior to the loan actually starting to be paid off. It also ended this year with the 2020-2021 tax assessment was the last of 20 years. I mentioned earlier that the cost was greater than forecasted during those 2001 through 2005 system improvements and acquisition period for many reasons. The district did not have enough funds through the established assessment district and the SRF loan amount. And so there was also the cost overrun was also partly funded by debt issuance of bonds, certificates of participation by the district that included a lot of other projects for the water system of the district, but a portion of it was due to the cost overruns of the Donner Lake project. And since the Donner Lake assessment was locked at a specific amount, set at a specific amount, the district implemented a Donner Lake specific surcharge to cover the incremental portion of those bonds that runs for 30 years. It was a 30-year bond through September of 2036. So as I mentioned before, the assessment started before the loan payoff. So now the assessment is done for 20 years, but we still have 4 years of payoff of the loan. And that is in essence why today the Donner Lake Assessment District related restricted accounts have cash on hand funds available in 2021 now to pay off the loan early and save some interest expense, just like you would do on a car loan or a home loan. If you can afford it, come into some cash funds and can pay off a debt early, you're saving interest expense. 14 years ago, 1.7 million yielding at 5.25. And you know how good that number sounds after our last agenda topic. That 14-year investment generated over 80 grand in cash a year in investment income, and was inured and was deposited. It's the revenue, the investment income is credited as revenue to the district as a revenue item, and then the offset, the cash that's received, is put into the Donner Lake restricted account. So we can hold on to that cash, which perhaps 14 years ago, if you were earning 5% on your investment and the debt was at 2.34, you would just hold on to that cash and pay off the loan because you're making investment income that's greater than your loan interest expense rate. We have the inverse situation now. Our cash funds are earning less than 0.4%, and even with using some TVI investment funds, we will not get anywhere close to the loan rate, interest rate of 2.34. This is the details of the amounts accumulated and total cash funds available. In May, we received the second half portion of the last year of assessment from Nevada County and Placer County. We have funds invested in UPTIF and LAIF, and then we have the reserve fund, which went through the records from about 10 years ago. And it's in essence, the Fed Farm investment 14 years ago, that investment income each year funded the reserve fund up to the $830,000, which is held in the reserve fund, which was a requirement of the loan to build that up over 10 years. The payoff balance is 3.8. That would leave 580,000 in cash funds available. That's restricted, specific to Donner Lake area, and that 580 consists of, why do we have 580,000 left over? 202,000 of that is your interest savings. 180 of that is interest income in excess of projections. And then the contingency is kind of related to having more investment income than was projected 15 years ago. And looking back at the schedules of the cash flow from 2006 through the end of the loan in 2026, the ending balance was around $200,000. So that's where that lands. If no additional projects are necessary, the funds could be used potentially to end the Donner Lake surcharge earlier than scheduled. Of course, this remaining funds could be used for a Donner Lake specific project. Let's see. Our plan is to address this through this remaining funds will stay in a restricted account, and then we will address that. What our recommendation is will be reviewed during the budget process for 2022-23 that is fast approaching. Fiscal impact, 202,000 in interest expense savings through 2026. We will lose some interest income on cash funds, even at a low rate over that time. So the net cash flow savings would be 162, discounted to today's value. That's $160,000 net present value savings. So it's a good thing. It's in this it's definitely a science project, a homework, looking back at records from 2001 through 2006 was definitely a project to understand this in full. But that is where we sit right now and what I know about the SRF loan. With that, I'll turn it back over to President Finn.
Wow, that is a lot of kind of confusing information. So for now, I'm going to open it up to the public. Does the public have any comments or questions on this subject?
No, Madam President.
Thank you, Shauna. Now I'm going to turn it over to the board. Would anybody like to start with a comment or a question? Let's see.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. Just Mike, thanks for digging in the dirt. I mean, this is, you got to crunch some numbers and look at all the numbers. And so really appreciate you doing that. So this makes really good financial sense. So I'm in full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bender. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, we can not take any action and just pay off the loan as we go along, bumble along, and pay it off on time, make our payments semi-annually and pay it off through 2026. But, you know, the interest rate is 2.34 and we're currently we have the money in the bank and we're earning 0.4. So to me, it makes sense to carpe diem.
Mike, can you go back a few slides to the options we have for the 580,000? So if we pay this off, this money goes into a restricted fund for Donner Lake.
Well, all the funds are in restricted funds now. It will have, after we pay it off early on July 1st, we will have 580,000 left over.
Right. So the options you presented are potentially fund a project in the area, apply it to a early payoff of the bond. Okay, so these are all kind of ideas that we brought back later to the board to discuss.
Well, it wouldn't be paying off the bond early. It would be, instead of surcharge funds at Donner Lake, instead of the Donner Lake customers continuing to pay the surcharge, it would potentially end early, and we would use this 580,000 to replace the surcharge money.
Okay.
Same customers.
Okay. We're not acting on that
We are not.
tonight, though. You'll bring that back at a later date.
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. I think it's fundamentally a pretty sound idea. I do always like our money working for our customers. The idea that we can perhaps save some interest and maybe even cut down on the assessment district payments in the future sounds good to me. So
I failed to mention earlier, just for clarification, there are no prepayment penalties, so we're not paying any fees. This is, the loan is, mature enough, long enough in the tooth that there's no early payoff penalty or anything like that. We just have to wire the money.
Michael, our balance is 3,802,000.
Yes,
So
sir.
we have the money to pay that off,
Yes, sir.
and we'll save 202,000 in interest expense through the loan ending, right?
Correct.
And come out with 585K on top. Right? Oh, you nodding yes. I see you now. Why haven't we done this? Why are we still paying interest on a loan if we have the money to pay it off?
Yeah, it's a great question, Director Aguera. The 14-year, the impetus, the trigger is that the 14-year investment in Fed Farm at 5.25% matured mid-March of 2021. So I had my eye on this a few months ago, maybe 6 months ago, and so we had an investment of 1.7 million that was paying 5.25% that is now just sitting in LAIF.
Okay, now you mentioned we'll pay the surcharge off with that 585,000. What is the surcharge? It keeps going on?
Well, the surcharge was part of the added for the incremental bonds, cost of bonds that was taken on specific to Donner Lake. And it's a Donner Lake surcharge that could potentially be ceased earlier than 2036 by a few years if the board's pleasure is to utilize those funds in that direction. And we'll address that through the 2022-2023 budget cycle and refresh everyone on the options and what the funds are and where it's at and lay that out through the 2022-2023 budget process. That's coming up.
Okay, now we have an account for the surcharge money. It's going into one separate account, right?
Correct.
Are we paying that off and our limit is to 2036? That's our time limit?
The surcharge is used to pay the Donner Lake portion of the annual assessment, of the bonds. And the incremental cost of the bonds related to Donner Lake is paid for by the surcharge.
That's what we're talking about, this 3,800,000.
That's actually unrelated to the 3.8 million is the SRF loan, which was the first big slug of Donner Lake debt. And because of cost overruns, there were bonds and we added a surcharge. So they're related but separate things.
All right, but the surcharge will keep going on then.
That's correct.
The customers pay that surcharge.
Correct.
So what we're talking about in this panel here is paying off that 3,802,000, and we'd be saving interest for the remainder of this time period, the 22/6, right?
Correct.
Okay, and we'll be saving 200,000 in interest. So, I mean, it's easy to see. I think we want to do that. Don't you? That's why you recommended it, right?
There was no one twisting my arm.
Oh, good.
It looks like pretty straightforward math to me. I can't see a reason not.
Yeah, it is. At first, there was too many figures for me to figure out what was going on. This panel kind of sums it all up.
Yeah. Thank you, Director Aguera.
I'm just going to pipe in and say, Michael, thank you, and thanks to Melanie for all the financial information that you've provided tonight. You seem like you'd have a good handle on it, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We don't have to do anything tonight on this yet. Or shall we
well,
move to
we're not.
pay off the loan?
We will be taking action tonight, but not on everything that he presented. So I look forward. You answered my question, Michael, about a prepayment penalty, so thank you. And yeah, I look forward to it coming back to the board to talk about the options to use the change, as it were, to best serve our Donner Lake customers. So whatever that might look like, that surcharge sunsetting early would be good, but I don't know. You guys will come back to us with the options and help us sift through what might be the most bang for our buck on that part of it. But yeah, I also agree. If it makes more sense for us to pay it off and save in the interest, we're making no money in life, so we might as well save money, because what is it? A penny saved is a penny earned. It's a thing. So let's go ahead and do that. I think. So now I think we're ready to take action. Would anybody like to make a motion as per Michael Salmon's recommendation to us?
I'll move staff's recommendation.
Second.
Very good. Shauna, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Director Aguera?
Yes.
Director Bender?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis?
Yes.
President Finn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. And that brings us to routine business. Item number 19, approval of the treasurer's report. Thank you, Michael. I'm sorry. My manners are not where they should be tonight. So thank you for your presentation. It's a lot of complex, dense information, and I think you did a great job of helping us to understand it all. Now, back to regular business, routine business. Approval of the treasurer's report, and approval of disbursements. He rolls them all into one nowadays, and that is a real efficiency upgrade. So do we have...
You rolled them into one, did you say?
Roll them into one. Yeah. So we've got the approval of the report and paying the bills all in the same.
Well, I think we ought to pay our bills.
I second that.
Or they'll close us. Somebody will.
I'm going to take that as an official motion, and I am going to second it. Can we get a roll call?
That's fine. I move to pay the bills. Yes.
Perfect.
Director Aguera?
Yes.
Director Bender?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis?
Yes.
President Finn?
Yes.
Thank you.
And our very last item tonight is approval of the minutes for the May 5th and the May 19th, both 2021 minutes. So do we have any comments or a motion? I have no comments.
I'll move approval of the May 5th and May 19th, 2021 minutes.
I will second that.
Director Aguirre,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
I'm going to abstain on those.
Vice President Laliotis,
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes. Wow, that was a very dense meeting. Thank you all for being here and giving us your best selves tonight. And I think we don't have an item 20. We just did item 20. We save a lot of time. It's just to move the So anyhow, thank you. And have a great night, everybody. See you in a couple